Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Alumni Cocktails and Conversations with the Dean. I'm the Dean, Rick Davis of College of Visual and Performing Arts at George Mason University, and it is such a thrill to be back with you here in the great realm of cyberspace with a terrific panel for our third installment of this great program. We've had wonderful conversations for the first 2 weeks and terrific response from the audience. I'd like to say right up front that if you're watching us on a platform that has comments, Facebook Live or whatever it might be, please feel free to ask questions in that comment thread, and our producers will shoot them our way when we reach that point in the conversation. So from now till whenever, feel free to post your comments and questions, and we will get to as many of them as possible. The topic for today's broadcast is new realities in the business of the arts. And obviously the new realities are a lot to do with the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot to do with the structural changes that seems to be forecasting, making right now, actually, and then forecasting down the road, and how institutions are coping in the moment and how we're thinking about moving forward. And we have an amazing group of folks, of professionals today to talk about that. I think I'll just introduce them to you one at a time here, and we'll bring all of them in on the screen so we can meet them for a quick second, and then we'll talk one-on-one with each of them for a while, and then we'll have kind of a panel discussion, if you will, and we'll, as I said, take your questions throughout the whole experience. The first panelist is Erika Scott, who is an arts management grad. Hey, Erika.
Hey.
She works in Washington, D.C. at the Ford's Theater, which is one of the great historic institutions, not only in America, but also a terrific producing theater and a museum and a national something or other, national park monument. It's a federal facility as well as being a great artistic facility. So it's great to see Erika again. Our second panelist is Jenn Harris, who's an alumna of the School of Theater. Hey, Jenn.
Hi.
Jenn was my student in the early 2000s, I think it was, and went on to get a master's degree at NYU, but she'll tell you all about that. And she is the general manager of Woolly Mammoth Theater Company, another one of DC's proud theater institutions. Our third panelist is Carla Thomas McGinnis, who is a graduate of the Arts Management program. Hey, Carla.
Hello.
And Carla also works in Washington at the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, where she is the Assistant Director of Council Operations and Museum Initiatives. And it's wonderful to see you again, Carla. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And our fourth panelist is Hilary Judis, another arts management grad, another person who finds herself working in theater, also in Washington as the Director of Marketing and Communications at Studio Theater. So this panel, and we have one more to come, but I just wanted to stop on I got all the theater folks. Oh, wait a minute, I got another one coming. But all the DC theater folks, we have Woolly, Studio, Ford's, represented here, and that's like three of the best theaters in the country, not to mention theaters in DC. So we are really blessed to have this panel. And then, of course, Carla works for one of the great institutions in the world and one of its proudest components. But last and certainly not least, I'm very happy to introduce Emily Travis, another arts management grad who lives and comes to us from her place in New York, New York. And she is a marketing manager of Theater Development Fund, or TDF as it's more commonly known. And this is an institution that has been instrumental in the growth and promotion of the American theater, specifically in New York, but really nationwide. And so she has a lot to talk to us about that perspective. TDF has been a real part of a lot of our lives for a long time. So welcome to this incredible panel. Now, most of you are going to go away again, and I'm going to spend some time on screen with Erika, and we're going to hear her life story in 5 minutes or less. So no pressure, but Erika, tell us how you got to this little square on a TV screen in 2020.
So I am from Largo, Maryland, and that's where I'm currently residing. Coming live from the couch in the den. I graduated. I got my master's degree from George Mason, but before that, I was studying theater and film at both Prince George's Community College here in Largo, and then I went to the University of Miami in Miami, Florida, and just lived the best possible arts life that I could live there before coming home. I took a small break before I decided to get my master's degree at George Mason, and then from Mason, I graduated in fall 2016, and by December, so by March, I was working at Ford's, and it's been an absolute dream. I'm doing everything that I learned how to do in the arts management program at Ford's daily, and probably now more because we've had to switch to a digital platform post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, active pandemic. So that's pretty much where I am now. It's a lot, but I'm so grateful that I was able to get my degree from Mason, and I come back to Mason still. I run the internship program at Ford's currently, along with that's one of my other duties as assigned. And I get to come back to Mason every spring to the internship fair that I used to work on when I worked at Mason 1,000 years ago, feels like. But at Ford's, I'm the artistic programming manager. And so I work with casting and season selection. And I like to say we have our education department that educates the children. And I like to say that in artistic, we educate the adults. So any post-show discussions or history-related things that happen around the season, I am responsible for. So it's a fun job.
What's at Ford's, because it is such a special place, being such a historic venue, what's the relationship in your day-to-day life with the sort of the museum / national monument aspect of the place?
It's integral. Any given day, so we give tours daily, which, as you can imagine, has been very difficult to do, but we're still giving tours daily online. And you can visit if you want to. But in my job, the most part of interacting with the theater is making sure that the designers that come in keep the integrity of the theater alive. So we work closely with the designers, both costumes, scene, lights, everything, to make sure that they don't cover the history that is represented at Ford's Theater. And you would think that it would be a harder task, but it has been, in my 4 years at Ford's, it's been phenomenal to see how designers and artists are able to come in and mesh the day-to-day of our day-to-day with 1865 Ford's, because the theater looks exactly like it looked that fateful night. So
yeah, Ford's has a growing reputation for, I think, artistic innovation and strong production values. It's really a place you really want to go see shows, and one of the reasons you want to go there now is that the seats are a lot more comfortable than they used to be.
Oh yeah, oh definitely. We've gone through several iterations of seats for sure, and we don't have quite as many seats in the house as may have been in the house that night, but we definitely have nicer seats now.
Yeah, I think the first time I went there, you had the original 1865 seats. No, not quite. But, you said you also work on casting.
Yeah, I do.
So tell us, in a minute or so, tell us about the casting philosophy and the casting process at Ford's.
So we pride ourselves in casting almost 100% locally. We try not to go out of town because there's so much talent here in the DC area, the surrounding areas, the DMV as we like to call it. There isn't a need to go out of town to cast, but every once in a while you get a part where you do need to broaden your horizons. But every year we make sure, we only do 4 shows a year, and we make sure that all 4 of those shows feature local talent. So any given chance, you may see Craig Wallace or Awa Salseka walking down the street, and you know that you saw that person on Ford's stage, and it's awesome.
Yep, and Craig Wallace has been a faculty member at George Mason from time to time, and a good friend. He used to act with Theater of the First Amendment all the time, and he sort of inherited the role of Scrooge from Ed Gero, didn't he? A few years ago. Yeah, another Mason connection. So I guess that part is kind of in the family. Well, Erika, thank you. You can go back to the green room for a few minutes, and you'll join us again when we're all together. That was terrific. And we'd like to bring in Jenn Harris now to give us the woolly perspective. Even saying that gives me a chuckle, to the woolly perspective. Because people who work in the DC theater, and really a lot of people nationally in the theater community, sort of know what that means, that there is a woolly take on things. And you have a new artistic director as of 2 years ago?
Almost 2 years. Almost 2 years.
But before that, Howard Schulwitz, one of the founders, was the artistic director for a long, long time. And you worked with him coming up. So tell us anything, but first of all, tell us a little bit about your journey, more than I said, and then how you found your way into your current position at Woolly.
Great. So I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia. That's where I was born and raised. And I started out at Mason actually in 2002, believe it or not, getting my bachelor's degree in theater. So I directed many shows there. I actually acted in a few shows there, was a technician in a few shows. So just kind of had the overall experience at Mason. I graduated in 05, 06, somewhere in that general area, a little earlier than normal. And a bunch of friends and I got together one night and decided that we wanted to start our own theater company. And so we drew, I won't reveal the names because I feel like that's too much. But we drew straws, and I drew the short straw and decided to go to graduate school to learn how to run a theater company, which is exactly what I did. So I went to NYU. I went to the Gallatin School of Individualized Study, where I studied artistic direction and production. So I took a lot of my business classes at Stern and at Steinhardt, and was able to take my art classes at Tisch, and just got to take entertainment law at the law school. So just kind of got a well-rounded degree, and then got out right during the recession. So I kind of feel for the graduates of 2020 and what they're about to go through, and decided that I really just wanted to dive head into the theater world, and so accepted an apprenticeship at Studio Theater in DC. So came back to where I had originally started, and was their company management apprentice for a year. And during that year, that was the last year of the founding artistic director there, Joy Zinnemann. And so I saw that transition through, and became their associate production manager, and stayed on for another 3 years before moving to Woolly, where I actually started as their production manager, became their director of production a couple years later, and then about 3 years ago now, I guess, became their general manager. So a lot of what I do a lot of finance, I do contracts, hiring, casting, HR. It's just kind of a hodgepodge of all the things that I've absorbed over the years, including but not limited to capital projects and strategic planning. So all the fun stuff.
Yeah, well, you made sense out of all that in a very efficient way, because I like the word hodgepodge, because that, we've talked on this particular program before, the last 2 weeks, both weeks, about the concept of the nonlinear career, and one of the aspects of the nonlinear career is the career that has multiple sources and sort of fields that merge and come up with something else. So you went ahead and made up your own graduate degree, which I think is a really cool idea for any aspiring undergrads out there. But then that paid off, because you're working with a lot of the skills that you did both as an undergrad and as a grad student, and in your early professional work. I'm going to put you on the spot also, like I did with Erika, since I know that you and I have talked about casting quite a bit over the years, and I'm curious about the sort of the Woolly take on casting, and whether, first of all, what it was, and whether it's changed under the new management.
Sure, yeah. Well, I think Woolly's in a unique position because we actually have a company of actors. And it's not just a company of actors, but also designers and directors. So, there's been kind of different iterations of how the company flows in and out of the casting world, and they're not just seen as, those individuals are not just seen as actors, but they're actually members of our artistic collective. So we go to them and they come to us about ideas of different shows that they want to do. If they want to branch out and do directing or audience outreach or community outreach or education, like all of those things are considered part of the things that the company provides for Woolly Mammoth, which I think is fantastic. And so there are times when we read plays and we think of certain company members and we think, oh my gosh, this person would be perfect. And we call them and we actually have conversations about the play before we decide that that's something that we're going to do or that it's something that they're going to do. And like with anything, I think we start to really branch ourselves out, and we're pushing ourselves to be more inclusive in not only the work that we do, but the representation on our stage. And so I think that that's somewhere where Woolly is headed at the moment in terms of broadening the pool in DC and really making it possible. I think one of the things that we don't really talk about in casting very often is how do we create a community and an environment where actually actors can come here and thrive and live and make a living. How do we get other theaters on board with that idea so that we're actually providing the work for the local actors in town? And really, there are so many institutions, Mason being one of them, but also Howard University, American University, Catholic. There are so many universities that are right there that have so many young, bright, brilliant students that really could build up this community. And I think we're very fortunate to have that. And I'm hopeful that the artistic minds that are coming into this city, and not only that, but also Baltimore. Like I feel like even just our local pools in that regard are also really special. So I'm hopeful for that and constantly pushing for that. So.
Terrific. If we ever got a serious rail system in this country, it would be Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, Richmond, Norfolk would be one big acting pool.
Come on, let's just do it, Rick.
But we'll see if that ever happens. Well, Jenn, you can take a little break. So take 5, as we say, and I'll see you in a few minutes when we bring everybody back together. We're now going to bring in someone who is no stranger to the theater world, but who is a top-level professional in the world of museums and the visual arts and culture. Carla Thomas McGinnis, welcome back, Carla, and tell us how you got here.
Well, I'm glad that Jenn started talking about nonlinear careers. To say that that's definitely what describes or how to describe mine. I got my undergrad. Well, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and got my undergraduate degree at the University of Michigan in African American Studies and Women's Studies. And then my first job out of undergrad was at the Charles Wright Museum of African American History in Detroit. So I found my career has gone back and forth between theater and museums. My first job at the Charles Wright was working as the Living History Project coordinator, coordinating, bringing actors into the museum, bringing to life the exhibitions there at the museum. So when I found myself here in the DC area, I was ready to jump into theater, full time and say, okay, well, I've done theater in a museum. What would it be like to do theater at a theater company? So I went back to school. Got my master's degree in arts management. I graduated in 2013. And as a part of my work in arts management, I did the fellowship at Arena Stage and really kind of got myself steeped in the theater world, working on their National Civil War project. It was during the sesquicentennial of the Civil War. So we were doing history work at a theater. So, but now I'm, as you said, I'm at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I was lucky enough to be a part of the team that helped open the museum in 2016. Though recently I took a break from the museum world and did some fundraising, consulting with all kinds of nonprofits. But as of last fall, I'm back at the museum, working with our council, working with our our director's office, connecting our staff with our wonderful group of board directors. We call them our council, our advisory council.
We were clever enough, I would say, to give your deputy director Kinshasa Holman an award last year at our degree celebration ceremony.
Yes.
And she was an amazing speaker. And Spencer Crew, of course, is he still interim director? Is that the deal? Or?
Yeah, he's still interim director.
So
yeah.
Spencer Crew is sort of on loan to the Smithsonian from George Mason because he is a Robinson Professor of History and a wonderful colleague here. So there's just some interesting connections between these institutions. So that's one of the major cultural institutions in the world. I think it's not an exaggeration to say. What is it? I don't know if this is even a question, but it's something I think about when I step into that space because it has a kind of sacred feel to it. It has a feel of such depth, and it's not like a lot of other places. What does that do to your life as an administrator to be associated with something that has that much resonance every square foot?
I mean, it's a pilgrimage for people that come from all over the world. It's incredible to see. I mean, when we first opened, there were literally, someone was rolled in on a gurney. This person could not walk, but wanted to be there and came. I mean, people come from all over. It's just incredible to see, some of our elders that get to be in the exhibition spaces and that bringing their children, their grandchildren, great grandchildren with them, and to see the kinds of conversations that happen. I remember hearing a story about one young woman who was in one of our culture galleries and she just was crying. My colleague asked her, what's going on? And she said, this is the first time I've ever seen myself represented in a movie. She's a Black Jewish person. And she's like, nobody ever tells the story of Black Jewish people when they talk about, religion and they talk about African Americans. We never get discussed, And so it is an incredible honor to be able to, until recently, go every day to a place that is so special for so many people. It's one of the things that I say I have missed in this teleworking moment is, sometimes you're sitting at your desk and you get something that's frustrating, and then I just get up and go into the galleries and get reminded about why I do this. And it's having worked there and then not worked there and then working there again. It's something I will not ever take for granted.
Wow, that's great. Well, that's an amazing story. And we're going to come back to the last bit about what it's like now when we do our panel, because I think everybody will have things to say about coping with and delivering on mission in the current situation. So thank you, Carla. You may take a break for a few minutes.
Thank
you.
You.
We're going to talk to Hilary Judis, another arts management graduate working here in the Washington, D.C. area at Studio Theater. So you've worked at two of my favorite theaters, Center Stage, where I spent 6 happy years up in Baltimore, and now Studio Theater here in D.C. But of course, that's the tip of the iceberg. Tell us about the iceberg. How did you get there?
So I went to undergrad at Ithaca College, and I focused mostly in acting and directing. But as soon as I was ready to graduate, I knew that I didn't really want to do either of them, or just didn't want the lifestyle of doing either of them. And so I took a clean break, really, from theater in general, and ended up moving back home, which was Silver Spring, Maryland, and worked at a law firm in HR for a number of years because that's the kind of jobs that you get, especially that happened right really when the recession started ramping up and hitting. And I immediately kind of regretted my choice of leaving theater and wanted to get a job in a theater, but I couldn't get a job in theater because I had left the theater world.
Hmm.
So I went back to grad school and did George Mason in the evenings while I was working at the law firm. And in sort of my last semester at Mason, I knew I wanted to take a like full-time residential internship kind of elsewhere, either in the DC area, or could have been anywhere nationally. I ended up at McCarter Theater Center in Princeton University doing their fundraising apprenticeship program for a year, and then stayed there for 3 more seasons. I just loved that theater so much. I really fell in love with the work, and we did a lot of world premieres there. It was just really fun place to be. I learned a lot about fundraising and data at that time, and focused a lot of my work kind of in how do we move prospects up the ladder, and using data to do that, and using information that we would gather in Tessitura, and kind of advancing my Tessitura knowledge. And took a job back in the DC area so that I could be near my family. And it was a fundraising job. And I realized I just didn't want to do that anymore either. And I ended up leaving that position and taking some time off and figuring out what is it that I actually really want to do. What are the things that I love about this industry? And that was data, that was income reporting, talking to people about the art, watching the art, promoting the art. And I, applied for a job at Center Stage in marketing and decided that was the best position for me. And I ended up loving marketing and stayed there for a little over 3.5 years, and then knew it was time to really kind of step up and run my own department and be a leader. And I ended up at studio in September, and that's where I've been ever since.
That's such a great story on our nonlinear career path that we're talking about over and over, because you've done this and this and this, but your last two moves were linear, and that's it. That's often the case, I think, if people are still sort of working things out and gathering skill sets, and then they find a path and advance along that path. It's really now you. So Studio Theater has another theater that, although it completed its transition while Jenn was there, you're the beneficiary of a fairly new regime still, and with some interesting expansion plans and renovation plans going on. So just take a second, if you wouldn't mind, and talk about the sort of the forward-looking viewpoint from Studio Theater right now, with the discussion of really the facility and mission and all of that.
Yeah. So last year, about around this time, was the announcement of the break from the acting conservatory and Studio Theater, the producing theater organization. And it was about focusing on the art and stewarding the organization forward for the future. And over the past couple of years, there had been a lot of different renovation plans that have been kicked around, and how can studio really prepare for the future of this industry. So in February, I believe, we made our public announcement of our capital campaign, Open Studio, and the renovation will be taking our largest space, gutting it, and making a really flexible theater in there, which will kind of prop up the productions that we used to do that were in our tiniest spaces that were really immersive and edgy and really fun, and putting them kind of in the forefront and being the main theater that we are producing and the first theater that you go in there. Also doing a website relaunch that'll happen this summer, doing a branding refresh that'll happen this summer. We're also taking community engagement, putting it at a forefront of our institution, and changing the way that we interact with our neighborhood and with organizations in this city. And then the other big thing is the one of the bar areas is being gutted and kind of put in a they're calling it a white box. I don't really understand that much about facilities, but we're gonna hope to get in a restaurateur in that space who wants to run a cafe there that would run independently from the institution, but also provide the kind of bar and concession service for the institution.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's very ambitious, and we'll come back. We'll come back to that question about ambition when we talk in the panel about effects of the current crisis and what how people are adapting plans. But I think all of us who are interested in facilities wish that we could just renovate everything right now while we're while we're closed. But that's sometimes things don't work out.
Oh, trying green materials right now.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the first thing they were like, well, a lot of the materials we're going to have a big delay on.
Yeah, so it's a curveball and however you look at it. Well, great. We'll come back to you, Hilary, in a few minutes, and we will send you to the green room. And now we're going to meet Emily Travis, who is our final guest, and she comes to us, as I said, from New York, from Theater Development Fund. And tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So, hi, I'm broadcasting live from Queens in New York City.
And let me just ask, is the thunderstorm past now? Are you safe?
Yeah, there was thunder and lightning, and it was totally sunny, and now it's pouring down rain right now. But
very good. Well,
so if you hear some rumbles.
I'm glad you're indoors.
Yes, me too. I've been indoors a lot these days. So I'm the marketing manager at TDF. TDF stands for Theater Development Fund. And we are best known for the TKTS booth under the Red Steps in Times Square. So, you may have been there and visited us and gotten discount tickets from us. I'm originally from Sterling, Virginia, so not far from Mason at all. And I graduated from the Arts Management program in 2011 with my master's degree. Prior to that, I had my bachelor's in music business from Drexel University in Philadelphia. So I definitely come from sort of the music side. And so after I graduated from Mason, my first job, I actually got through my internship that I did as part of the program at the Textile Museum in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
And so it was meant to be a temp job. It was meant to be a three-month period to help in while some people were out. And I ended up staying there for a year. So that was a great foot in the door on the museum side. And then from there, I went to the Association of Performing Arts Professionals, also in Washington, D.C., a service organization. So now I've been in service organizations for the last 9 years. So I was at the association for 4 years. And then I came to TDF, and I've been at TDF for 5 years now, where I primarily oversee our membership program and all of our ticket sales.
So what is I think we all know the TKTS booth, and we certainly enjoyed its presence. What else does the organization do? What are some of the other programs?
Great. This is a good question. TDF is an interesting business model. So we are a service organization, and we primarily focus on access. And we do access through a variety of different means. We do accessibility. So a lot of the Broadway theaters will contract us to do their accessibility program. So open captioning, sign language interpretation, seating for people with limited mobility. So we do a lot of that for Broadway and off-Broadway. We also have a ton of community and school programs, as well as programs that support theater makers, such as we have a costume collection, a giant warehouse in Astoria. We rent out to nonprofit theaters across the country. So, for a lot of theaters that maybe can't have their own designer, we do that for them.
Yeah, and that's a famous resource that is. I've actually spent a little bit of time in among the racks there back in the day. Yeah, and I may date myself, but do you still have the voucher program?
No, we're all online now.
Okay, well there it is. But that was a program whereby students and others and it had nothing to do physically with the booth. It was just a way of getting tickets out at a great discounted rate in New York for people for whom accessibility was an issue on the financial side.
Right, because access, a part of that is financial access, right? Yep. So that's now our membership program. We have 120,000 members. And I oversee that. I do acquisition, retention, and sell tickets. No longer vouchers, tickets.
Yeah. Great. That's terrific. What is one of the signature challenges that you faced in making the transition from one kind of organization? APAP is a nationwide arts presenting organization that is dealing with we obviously work with them all the time and attend the annual conference, and we have a large presenting series in 2 venues, so we do a lot of that kind of work. But that's a very different dynamic than TDF, which is working with a bunch of producers. I would think it's a kind of a different energy there.
Right. So our audience for each of those organizations was different. At APAP, we were serving arts presenters, so places like Carnegie Hall or the Kennedy Center, right? So those were who we were serving. Whereas at TDF, we're serving audiences directly.
Yeah.
So it's more about how do we get people to take, to be able to see theater and to experience what we love and enjoy about it, and giving people access. So it's much more direct to audience.
Yeah, and both organizations I know are concerned with the question of accessibility in many fronts. But something I want to talk to the panel about, or whoever is interested in talking about this, is the question of the affordability of the arts. Carla is exempt from this because the Smithsonian is free. Yay! But I'm sure she could talk about it anyway. But everybody else who works either at a museum that is revenue dependent, or any of the theaters that we are representing here, that question, I think, is really important, especially as we think about the return to production whenever that happens after the current situation. If you can take a stab at this, what's the New York take on that right now in terms of how people are going to, are they going to be priced out of coming back if houses are restricted in size, or is there any discussion of how that's going to work?
I'm sure there is. TDF,
and you'll have to solve it.
Right. And TDF is not a producing organization, right? So we don't have a space to fill. We don't have, we're not doing that. But I think what we're thinking is that when theaters do reopen, people might be hesitant to go. And so and we might have the inventory to pass on to our membership. So, our members might be able to get to see shows that they didn't maybe see before, like Dear Evan Hansen, which is selling out every day. But maybe if people are hesitant to come back, our membership who is local to New York might be, I don't know. We're still figuring.
Yeah. It's a real puzzle, and on the theme of puzzles, it's a good chance to reassemble our chessboard here on the screen and bring everybody back on and engage. Thank you, Emily. That was a fascinating introduction to a part of the theater world that probably in a lot of the country is not as well known, and I think it's a really important resource. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed your break. We're going to be talking together in a way that is very voluntary about your own institution's thinking about the current moment and what you are planning and what you are experiencing and what you are doing, because hardly anybody is not doing anything. We jumped in with Mason Arts at Home with both feet and have put up several programs a week now since we started in late March, and you all are doing things that are equally interesting. So I'm interested in the present moment, which could extend for a while, as we know, and there's no way of knowing exactly how. But how you're starting to think about the future. What are you planning for? What are you worried about? Who wants to just jump right in?
I can start if y'all want me to.
That would be great.
Of course, our biggest worry is a social distance friendly experience post pandemic. For us, our season is only 4 shows. And so that is not a lot in comparison to what like studio does or what Willie is doing or what our other colleagues are doing. So this pandemic hit us very hard. We were in Tech Week getting ready to open Guys and Dolls when we were forced to close. And I remember it being like a day by day, it was like hour by hour type thing. Like, okay, we're going to do this. No, okay, now we're going to do this. And that's kind of where we are now in our mental capabilities. What can we do tomorrow that will sustain us for the rest of the month, rest of the week, rest of the year? And it's very scary for an organization that only has 4 shows, one of which is Christmas Carol. And I know people are looking forward to a Christmas Carol of some kind. We have to figure out how to provide that. So,
well, you all probably saw the press release out of Minneapolis that the Guthrie Theater is not doing a Christmas Carol for the first time in 46 seasons.
Yeah,
because they're not coming back till March of 2021. So, yeah, wow, yeah, it's amazing. Anybody else have a?
Yeah, I think it's also about balance, right? Or at least from my perspective at my institution, there's the balance of how do you take financial responsibility for your staff members, for the artists, for the people that you are, how they make their living, but then also how do you make sure that you're providing the best environment for the artists when they do return, and the best environment for the plays and for the playwrights who have spent their life making this work and want to do this work. And you want to make sure that you're not doing just any show for only 10 people. Right. And we wouldn't be doing this work. There is not a single play where it's like, oh, okay, well, if people show up, okay. If they don't, they don't. It's actually really important, and the work that we do is really important. So it's about actually finding that middle ground and that balance of what can we do right now that we've always said we wanted to do? Like, are there opportunities for development? And play development is more what I'm talking about, but like, are there more opportunities for play development? Are there things that we can be looking at strategically? Like, we're getting ready to go into a strategic plan. Like, why can't, like putting all of our energy behind this one thing, or looking at, for me, it's looking at HR documents, which is so trivial why would anybody want to do that? But it's actually about how do you use this time to do all the things that you said you wanted to do, making your organization more inclusive in all of the ways, instead of just the ways that are the kind of the low-hanging fruit. And then it's also, as weird as this may sound, it's actually an opportunity, I think, for organizations to become more of a team. Yeah. And less hierarchical in this, like, this one person has to have all the answers. You're not reliant on each other in a different way, in a way that actually we were taught institutionally to be more collaborative in that way, right? Yeah. And so it's actually calling us to action in a different way, and not thinking, oh, which theater is going to be the first one to do this. It's actually all of us have to learn from one another. We're watching the West Coast because they've been through it. We're watching New York, knowing that they're a few weeks ahead of us, but also in a very different bubble. So, it's actually just how do we use this opportunity to become the community that we want it to be?
Yeah, break the silo.
Yeah,
right. There's not none of us have gone through this before. We're totally figuring this out together. Yeah.
What I think some fantasies in mid-March were like, oh, this is like a really long blizzard, but it's really not. I just want to remind our listening audience that we are open for questions. So if you have anything that you want to talk to our panelists about, either shout really loud into the void, or better yet, type your questions in the chat or the comment stream, and we will be sure to get to them. Who else had Carla?
Yeah. If I could, I would like to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're thinking of in the museum world. One of the biggest is how we provide a social distance safe experience in the galleries. And for those of you who've been to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, you know, some of them are pretty tight, in that way, in, you know, on purpose.
Yep.
Now, how do we create an experience for people to be safe? And you know, so our visitor services team is busy going through trainings and thinking about how we can train our staff to help visitors have an experience, how we can create new wayfinding signage and whatnot to move people safely through the building, through the cafe, how we can make the cafe more safe for people to eat. You know, some of the things, you know, if you've been to the museum, you know, there's a lot of technology in the exhibitions, a lot of touch screens. So thinking differently about touch screens, encouraging people to use their own devices to interact with the exhibitions, or voice interaction instead of touching, you know, so we're thinking about a lot of these kinds of things.
What a daunting. It was a lot of square footage and a lot of square surface footage to deal with.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
One of the cool things that I've just learned about our Family Research Center is now doing. We would typically do sessions with people during the week, helping them with their genealogical searches, and so now we're shifting digital, and people are going to be able to do that through Zoom. So
nice.
I just learned about this, so I'm excited to hear more of the details of what that is. So, you know, people are thinking very creatively about how, as we've been talking about, how we can provide the same service and fulfill the same mission in this new environment.
And that's before I turn to other panelists. I just have to jump on to that point and say that sounds like one of the things, and we're asking the same questions here. What are we going to take forward from this? We're learning things in this environment, not because we wanted to, but because we have to. But we're actually learning things that might be useful in in the new world whenever that arrives. So that sounds like one of them. Emily, Hilary, any?
I mean, I don't. It feels very bleak on our end. We're having a little bit of struggle.
That's okay.
Part of studio is intimate theater and really small spaces, and social distancing performances is not possible in the reality that we have right now. 6 foot apart is just not financially possible in a theater that holds 200 people at maximum. So we would be performing and a lot of theaters have brought in consultants to look at the amount of people that you actually could have in your space. And they're finding that when you're actually laying out the seats, that it's way less than 50%. It's less than 30%. They're looking at more like 20%. And so that's just like economically not possible. We run on these really small margins as it is. So it's every single day is spent projecting and tweaking these projections, and how can we accomplish this financially? What are the number of performances we're offering? What are we capping things at? The studio runs really 75% of our ticket buyers are subscribers. So what is our subscriber base going to be next year, 2 years, 3 years from now? How do single tickets work into that? Are we able to sell single tickets for the future? There's just so many questions that we're dealing with right now. And I think the Guthrie coming out and being kind of the first theater to really publicly announce the really, really late timelines is huge. It's just, it's really big. I think we're all starting to think about these different timelines that we haven't necessarily announced yet, but they're not timelines that begin in September.
That's
right.
Emily, we sort of started this theme with you while you were in the box alone, but what's happening?
Well, I think that Hilary said timeline, and I think that that's such a big unknown. But what we're doing is we just partnered with several other service organizations across the country, Arts Boston, Theater Bay Area, and with Wolf Brown, a research, an arts research firm. And so we're going to be doing a year-long study starting this week of our audience members across the country and asking them, what is it going to take for you to feel comfortable and confident to return to the theaters? You know, is it a vaccine? Is it social distancing and face masks? Is it reduction in new cases? So we're really, every 2 weeks, we're going to send out, several thousand surveys and just kind of gauge the temperature and see how it changes over time. And we launched the first survey this week, and we'll start getting data next week. So the firm it's Wolf Brown is the firm that's doing all the analysis and data collection. So watch their site.
So that'll be public when it's
I believe so. Yeah.
Great. That's fantastic.
Another branch to that, though, is also the artists, and whether or not they're going. There are different things that I'm reading in terms of unions and what they're going to allow, and whether or not they've Actors Equity has hired a safety consultant to basically decide when actors are going to be able to perform again under union standards. So even just hearing like what audience members are comfortable with, then you have the other side of this, which is you have, without these performers, you actually don't have anything to sell.
Right.
Well, that brings up a good point. In the museum world, collecting, museum is trying to collect, do this COVID collecting and wanting to get artifacts from people, a lot of it will be kind of the things that we can collect digitally, diary entries, recipes, that kind of thing. But we don't want to, but that can't be the only thing that we want to collect. And we, so how do we collect safely now? And without our collection, who are we as a museum?
Yeah. And without the act of collecting actively, it's
right.
A couple of questions are in queue here. That's a bad pun, in queue, sorry. One of them actually is directly related to our current theme. So I'm going to throw that out there and see if one or two of you would like to talk about it. What are your priorities and goals in messaging to audiences during this time of uncertainty? Oh, are we struggling with that? Who wants to take that?
Lincoln. With us, we turned right to Lincoln's words, right to our core. It's really interesting how history repeats itself and how there's always something. I think I'm the only one that's this interesting dichotomy between like theater and museum. So, all right. So we turned
in the same place, right?
Yeah, in one place. So we turned right to who we represent. And Lincoln has a lot of, and without giving away what is coming down the pipeline, we have some programming coming that ties directly into Lincoln's words. We just are sending out messaging that this too shall pass. We need to be strong. And those are things that Lincoln said to his country when he was dealing with a war and Reconstruction and slavery and all kinds of things. So it's very interesting to see how very little changes in 200, 300 years later. So
you get those better angels coming.
That's similar to the kind of messaging that we've been going with. The museum tells so many stories of resilience that we're reminding people that we as Americans are resilient. These are all the stories that show that, and this time is no different. And I think part of our priority is to let people know that we are still here, that we are still protecting our collection, that we aren't going anywhere.
Art doesn't die.
When it's time to reopen.
Yep.
Yeah, on that front, I mentioned the Guthrie already. I recommend that everybody search out Joseph Hodge short little video that he made a couple of days before or the day before they made their announcement. It's just 4 minutes long, but it's some of the most heartfelt, inspirational statement about commitment to the permanence of the arts as a human need. And I won't say anything more. Just H-A-J is how he spells his last name. Just Google him up and you'll find it. I have one more question here. I think we have time to get this in, and there may be time for even one more. But this is now going to your work as arts management professionals. and reflecting some folks in our audience, I think, any advice for students studying arts management, especially as it relates to internships in the summer and fall? Some of you have already talked about the role of internships, but from either from your own perspective, career-wise, or the institutions you represent, lay some good advice on us here for arts management students.
Be flexible, be open, try everything. I worked at the NEA and the Commission for the Arts at the same time, thinking that I was going to be in finance and maybe going to Devo, and now look at where I am. So you got to be open to being in the arts by any means necessary. So if that's what you really want.
Yeah. I think this is an opportunity too to be creative and to help people think about how interns can help in this moment as well. I said before, none of us have done this before. So it's not like there are a bunch of curators or administrators sitting like, this is how I know that I can engage with an intern to do this work. And so I'm going to go and find that. But I think as a student, someone looking to do an internship can kind of help bridge the gap and say, look, this is what I can provide.
Are you all,
we are still looking for interns.
I was going to say,
NMAHC is looking for fall interns. So.
Yeah, we've kept our apprentice program going, and we have made hires for our apprentices for next season. And we've sort of just communicated with them that we'll know at certain times when they're kind of being allowed to come back in. We're going to bring them in after our full staff is able to be back in the office. In terms of sort of the less formal internships and internship programs. And I know when I was in the arts management program, a lot of people were looking for these kind of remote opportunities. And right now is a really great time to be able to offer organizations help remotely, because we're all I just hired 2 consultants on very specific projects that we have the time to kind of focus on our volunteer program or to focus on some new data projects that are within Tessitura. So we're all looking for kind of project-based internship people, and we're all working remotely. So if you want to work remotely, this is a great time to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I would also take this time yes, there are some people that are privileged enough to be able to take those internships and those apprenticeship opportunities. But even if you find yourself in a situation where that's not necessarily something that you can do, I feel like we get away from some of the habits that we wish we could still do. Reading everything you possibly can, finding other things, to finding other resources, researching organizations that you're interested in, that you want to know more about, finding out more information as you go on, and then writing. I know that sounds so mundane, but being able to actually write this stuff as it's coming up and use this time to really work on your craft as an academic. We're all academics at a certain level. Even if it's more from a math perspective, it doesn't matter. You being able to kind of use those muscles that we kind of lose, that we loosen up on once we get, 9 to 5 jobs. So really honing in on those crafts, because I think they will come in handy. I mean, they're always going to come in handy, and they're definitely going to come in handy once we get out of this. And I think there's a lot of organizations who are, in a position of where they have to furlough or they have to lay people off. And once this all comes back, they are going to be hiring, and it is going to be your opportunity. And to stay up on it and stay fresh and know who those are and know who you want to work for is going to be a great asset to you.
That's great. Emily, do you want to have the last word?
That was great. So I don't know, I don't want to follow that up, but we did an informational interview with a student just today. So,
So
that was great. It was a great way to so do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I want to thank all of you. We just hit our time mark perfectly. I want to thank all of you for your generosity of spirit today and your intelligent comments on these thorny issues and for sharing a bit of your journey with us. Emily, Erika, Jenn, Carla, Hilary, it's been a real privilege and a real pleasure to spend an hour with you. And for the audience, I want to invite you to check out everything happening at Mason Arts at Home on the Center for the Arts webpage, cfa.gmu.edu. There's a whole bunch of great stuff happening. Interview with Mark Morris, company members tomorrow. That's just the tip of the iceberg. A whole bunch of great stuff. Thank you for spending some time with us today. And once again, to our wonderful panel, thank you all. It's great to see you.
Thank
And
you.
good night to all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.